on Code 3, a thrill seeker in Oregon takes bungee jumping to dizzying heights with disastrous results.
Hello, I'm Gil Gerard. One of the latest high-risk adventures for today's thrill seekers is something called base jumping, parachuting off stationary objects like high-rise buildings or bridges. Base jumping definitely delivers a thrill, but not without risk. And when trouble occurs, a would-be daredevil can find himself in an extremely perilous situation.
What Greg Jones calls fun, some others would call madness. But for Greg, life without an edge would be dull indeed.
Skydiving, bungee jumping, other forms of adventure is largely a vehicle that you could carry yourself on a way and learn things about yourself. I'm immortal. I'm invincible. And I may not be here tomorrow to tell you that, but...
Tethered to a 150-foot bungee cord, Greg takes flight. Thankfully, his bungee cord held. For his next adventure, Greg decided to parachute off Oregon's Multnomah Falls. But this 600-foot base jump ended in disaster. Greg's parachute malfunctioned and he slammed into the cliffs. After tumbling 400 feet, his chute snagged a tree and stopped him. Now semi-conscious, he has no way out.
We could see him moving, he's talking, he's yelling. So we opted to fly to the top of the falls and rappel to the forest above and then walk down to the top of the cliff.
Sergeant Snyder rappels to Greg's position. He assesses Greg's injuries, then straps him to his back to transport him to waiting paramedics. Anxious onlookers watch as Greg is lowered to the ground and assisted to safety. Sergeant Snyder receives a well-deserved hand for his efforts. Meanwhile, paramedics stabilize Greg with oxygen and an IV before airlifting him to a local hospital for evaluation. As a result of the fall, Greg suffered a hairline concussion, multiple bruises, and a shattered heel. But he survived.
Despite his close call and painful recovery, Greg Jones continued to challenge the thin line between life and death. In our next story, Greg takes bungee jumping to new heights, but this time he goes too far.
Greg and his friend Mike McGee are about to combine bungee jumping with skydiving. Connected by a 50-foot bungee cord, Greg and Mike will jump in tandem.
Ready. Okay, ready.
On cue, Mike will then open his chute while Greg continues to free fall. When the cord tightens, Greg will have the bungee bounce of his life. The world's first para-bungee begins. The men hit their target speed of 70 miles per hour, and as planned, Mike's chute opens. The bungee cord stretches and holds. Greg and Mike have made history. Invigorated by the experience, Greg and Mike decide to up the stakes. This time, they won't open Mike's chute until they reach terminal speed, 110 miles per hour. What you're about to see is Greg's experience featuring actual footage combined with other footage photographed by cameraman Tim McMahon. At an altitude of 10,000 feet, they take off. Greg signals they've hit terminal speed, and Mike pops his chute. But then the bungee cord breaks from the force of Greg's fall and strikes him in the face. Greg drops like a stone for 3,000 feet. Fortunately, he briefly regains his senses long enough to open his chute. Cameraman Tim McMahon collapses his chute, starts to spin, and dives to the rescue. As Tim gets closer, he can see that his friend is badly hurt.
Turn towards me! Turn into me! Turn into me! Turn into me!
Tim hooks his feet onto Greg's parachute in an effort to control their drop. Greg, barely conscious, is carrying them towards radio antennas below. Tim redirects their descent, and Greg signals he's okay.
Can you move your legs?
Yeah. I'm fading back and forth, though, Tim.
Knowing that Greg can't land himself, Tim guides them down. At last, they touch ground. Once again, Greg has survived an incredible ordeal.
Where you're looking at moments, seconds, milliseconds of something happening, you have an opportunity to reach inside yourself to come up with more than what you thought you had otherwise. Some people see life as a noun. I see it as a verb. It's a predator-prey relationship. I think, for me, a greater risk is not taking that risk, because then I'd end up lapsing back and being invisible to myself.
Without a doubt, Greg Jones' passion for risk-taking has produced some very close calls. Fortunately, when things went wrong, courageous men and women responded like guardian angels to help pick up the pieces.